Welcome to plenary session 3. My name's Daniel. I'm from the New South Wales Ministry of Health, and it's my incredible privilege to be chairing this next session. But before we go on with this next session, there's a bit of controversy I've got to bring up. There were some claims made at session number 2 that was the best session of the day, and Dr. Fernbach, sorry, I'm not sure if that's evidence-based, to tell the truth, because, let's have a look at what we've got ahead of us in session 3. We've got 4 poster presentations that are contributing to the effectiveness of treatment for substance use. That's fantastic. We've got 3 internationally recognised experts that are going to be giving us keynote presentations and discussions about great influences on population health, about some of the risks and harms and risks that we need to balance in order to maintain population health, and also the application of some of the solutions, and actually are there some consequences for that in certain parts of the life course. So some very stimulating discussion. We've got a really good Q&A that's going to be led by you, the delegates, so start thinking about your questions now. And then, to top it off, we have an awards ceremony. Boom. This is clearly the best. I'll stop from making any particular assertions, but I think the data speak for themselves that the symposium organisers have called that they've saved the best to last. So now I get to step back, and we're going to be inviting our speakers up one by one. We'll start off with Tayla to talk about an overview of review of evidence for substance use interventions.
Now, I'm going to do my best to use the clicker, but we'll see if it works for me. So hi, I'm Dr. Tayla Degan. I am a postdoctoral research fellow at the National Drug and Alcohol Research Centre, and I'm also a clinical psychologist. And today I will be presenting on a website that we developed, which displays the results from an overview of reviews looking at interventions for substance use disorders. Now, you all should be fairly familiar these days with what a QR code does. So I encourage you to get out your phones and scan the barcode up there. Thanks guys, that's about it. This is my way of promoting the website. So feel free to scan the QR code. It'll take you directly to the website, which I'll go through a little bit right now with you. Cool. So what do we do? Well, what we know is that policymakers and practitioners need evidence about the best available interventions. But there is a problem with that, and that's because gathering this information often requires the extensive reviewing of systematic reviews and synthesising the literature, which can often be really difficult and quite time-consuming. So it is important that we do develop approaches to communicate both the evidence that is available and how it should be understood. And an overview of reviews, or what's also known as an umbrella review, provides a way of doing this. So what we did is we identified systematic reviews and meta-analyses from randomised controlled trials between 2010 and 2021 pertaining to 3 topics for illicit substance use. So one of those was interventions for cannabis use disorder, the second was interventions for stimulant use disorder, and the third was interventions for opioid use disorder. Then what we did is we extracted what's called evidence statements and rated their quality according to the Cochrane grade rating system, and that's what you can see up there in the box there. So that's a little bit of a key in terms of how it's rated. So as you can see, the number of stars equals the quality of evidence, which reflects our certainty or confidence in the intervention, and the colour of stars indicates the direction of the intervention's effect. So basically, 3 green stars is high quality evidence to suggest a benefit of the intervention. 2 orange stars is, say, moderate quality, indicating that there's no clear benefit. So because you all did click on the QR code, you'll see that on the website we have 3 link outs to the 3 tables for the 3 topics that we looked at. And this is just an example of what you'll see on the website. So this is this is for stimulant use disorders. And as you can see up there, what this is letting us know is that in the green, so the 2 green stars, is saying that psychosocial interventions, there is moderate quality evidence to suggest that psychosocial interventions increase abstinence from stimulant use compared to no treatment, and contingency management increases abstinence from stimulants compared to treatment as usual. And then you'll see the orange stars, so 2 orange stars, so that's indicating that there is no moderate quality evidence that there's no clear benefit for pharmacological interventions there. So as I said, a website, it was our way of displaying the findings from the overview of reviews. It provides policymakers and practitioners with accessible, easy to understand and a rapid synthesis of the evidence that is available to support interventions for substance use disorders. It can help people decide what interventions may be most effective, and so we do really encourage you to check it out. Thanks. Thank you.
Brodie, can I invite you up?
Okay. Hello. Firstly, I want to acknowledge that we are on Bidjigal and Gadigal land. My name is Brodie, and the study I'm presenting is a systematic review and meta-analysis comparing methadone and buprenorphine for the treatment of opioid use disorder. Our paper was published earlier this year, so I encourage you to check it out. The project was very much a team effort, so full credit to all the authors listed here, as well as everyone else who contributed at NDARC and beyond. We know that opioid agonist treatment is highly effective in achieving numerous positive outcomes for people living with opioid use disorder. Methadone and buprenorphine are 2 commonly used medications for opioid agonist treatment. With this in mind, the current review compared the 2 medications on a wide range of clinically important outcomes. The primary outcomes were retention in treatment, adherence to treatment, and extramedical opioid use. And the remainder of outcomes are outlined on this slide. The study built on previous literature through the wide scope of outcomes and the inclusion of both RCTs and observational studies. In addition to comparing buprenorphine and methadone, we also synthesised additional available data on rate of retention in buprenorphine, but I won't be going into that here. Our comparisons between buprenorphine and methadone were based on 32 eligible RCTs and 69 eligible observational studies. The largest concentration of data was for retention in treatment, and the outcomes were commonly reported from 1 month up to 2 years for observational studies. Our meta-analysis showed that after 1 month, retention was better in methadone compared to buprenorphine. For extramedical opioid use, we found that data on the proportion of positive urinalysis results in RCTs favoured buprenorphine, but other metrics didn't show a significant difference between the 2 medications. There was also no evidence of differences for adherence. Across our many secondary outcomes, there were relatively few statistically significant differences between methadone and buprenorphine. There was some limited evidence of differences on some outcomes, which are listed here. More commonly, the differences favoured buprenorphine. However, the differences were often not consistent between study designs and were based on a small number of studies. So, the findings from this review highlight the imperative for interventions to increase retention in opioid agonist treatment. This is particularly evident in looking at the data on absolute retention rates, which I haven't shown you here. The minimal differences between methadone and buprenorphine for outcomes other than retention highlight the importance of considering client-centred factors, including preference, satisfaction, and accessibility in clinical practice. And in turn, we hope that future research can investigate the influence of these factors on retention in treatment. The minimal data available for synthesis on some important outcomes that we looked at also demonstrates some existing gaps and speaks to the need for harmonisation of data collection and reporting in future primary studies, and we look forward to seeing more research done on those. Thanks.
And now we welcome Rebecca McKetin to talk about the TINA trial. Mamma mia.
I'm glad you're doing that, not me.
Well, I'm not doing it. Aha.
From beginning. Oh, see, this is why you have postdocs. Thank you, everyone. Now, what was I going to say? I've completely lost my train of thought. But today I want to tell you about the TINA trial. This is a trial of mirtazapine for methamphetamine. And the rationale for this trial is that there's an estimated 7.4 million people worldwide with a methamphetamine use disorder. As I'm sure you know, there isn't a currently approved medication to help people reduce their methamphetamine use, or pharmacotherapy. Mirtazapine is a generic antidepressant drug, and there have now been 2 phase 2 trials in the USA, which have both found significant reductions in methamphetamine use with mirtazapine. They're very well-controlled trials, excellent trials. However, they're fairly modest in the sample sizes, and both of them were conducted specifically on men who have sex with men in the USA in very controlled circumstances, very controlled clinical trial circumstances. So the purpose of the TINA trial is to carry this forward and conduct a phase 3 trial to confirm these potential benefits in a larger sample of 340 people and in a much broader sample, which is much more likely to be representative of people who use methamphetamine, and in a more realistic setting, much more like routine clinical practice. So this trial, if we are able to confirm the benefits of mirtazapine on methamphetamine use, could be quite transformative. Not only do we not currently have a pharmacotherapy, but also this is currently an S4 medication. It's widely prescribed, very well-known safety profile, and pretty safe. So it wouldn't be very hard to put it into practice. We just have to get methamphetamine use disorder added as an indication to the existing generic medication. So the trial is currently ongoing. It's a randomised, placebo-controlled, double-blind study. And we're giving people 12 weeks of 30 milligrams a day mirtazapine, which is the same as the previous trials. We need 340 participants due to the hard work of our research officers, I think 3 of whom are sitting in the audience today. We're up to 134 randomised already. And we're currently recruiting at Geelong, Wollongong, Perth and Brisbane. And we'll be starting recruitment at Adelaide next year and then hopefully expanding out to some other sites. I'll just go back. If you're interested in finding out about the study, I love QR codes these days. Please scan this. Got a whole lot of information on our website. We also have an online portal for people interested in the study. They can go through this QR code, goes direct into our confidential secure database, and they get a phone call from one of our lovely trial researchers who can tell them more about the study. Just in closing, I want to acknowledge this is led by NDARC, but it's a collaborative venture with institutions and health services from all around Australia. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Amelia Woods about extended release pharmacotherapies in incarcerated populations.
Sorry, I didn't get the on-stage memo. I can give it a go, hey?
Mamma mia.
Do you want me to go, Jane?
Yeah.
Is it though? If you just close that. Getting there slowly. Happy days. So I'm Amelia. I'm a PhD student based at NDARC, as well as having some clinical roles as a GP and an addiction medicine registrar. And today I'm presenting on my systematic review. I previously worked in the prison sector as well. And I wanted to look at the extended release pharmacotherapies that have become available in more recent years and their use for people with substance use disorders who are in incarcerated settings. So I'm sure you all know this background. We'll just go over it relatively briefly. Substance use is a very widespread issue among people in criminal justice systems. Post-release, there's a very high risk of relapse and overdose. And we have seen that relapse prevention pharmacotherapy, as we've already heard about, is highly effective in many settings, including prison populations. So kind of specifically what I'm thinking about today is buprenorphine and naltrexone, because they are ones that, while historically we have had them in daily dosing formulations, more recently they've created some extended release formulations. And these, the daily dosing formulations have been shown to reduce harms in this setting. So we wanted to see if there was any evidence for extended release formulations for people who had substance use disorders in prisons. So we conducted a prisoner-compliant, Prospero-registered systematic review, searched 7 databases, and came up with 25 studies. So these are my results. I always stumble over this. It seems like a simple table, alas. We'll see how we go. So these are our primary outcomes that we were looking at. So in terms of substance use, extended release naltrexone, little bit of iffy results there. We had some that were suggesting no change, some suggesting some reduction in substance use. And with extended release buprenorphine, probably a reduction, but again, more studies needed. I'll say that about 10 times in this talk. Overdose, we really don't have much evidence for it. There were very small numbers of overdoses across all of the trials, possibly due to small numbers of participants across all of the trials as well. So really need more evidence. Retention in treatment, this was the one that we kind of thought would be a no-brainer if you've got an extended release formulation, alas. Extended release naltrexone, possibly due to the formulation, the antagonist nature of it. We didn't really find any particular change with extended release naltrexone, but there's a lot of caveats there because the comparator groups were things like treatment as usual rather than oral naltrexone. Extended release buprenorphine, probably an increase in retention and some more decent comparator arms there. Adverse events, reporting was far and wide and wild, and so really weren't able to compare that. Recidivism, again, well, if anyone was in Don's talk, there's clearly like a lot of things that are related to recidivism, and this is one particular aspect that we were looking at, but we couldn't see that these particular formulations improved recidivism, or made it worse, which is good, I guess, but more data needed. So I guess the major takeaway for us from this is that in this particular circumstance, we're hoping that a lack of evidence is not the same as as evidence of non-efficacy. We really do want more research, and prison research is very tough. There's a lot of ethical and access constraints. It's hard to navigate the various funding models. So just really more studies are needed with greater consistency within those studies. Thanks.